Senator Armstrong is a lot of things: a politician, a monster, and a fan of nanomachines. Despite only appearing in full in the final act of the game, he left an impression on people for his philosophy and meme-worthy potential. However, it is one event he states in his past which has always fascinated me.
Played college ball, you know. That's a cushy Ivy League school. Try University of Texas. Could have gone pro if I hadn't joined the Navy. I'm not one of those beltway pansies.
Senator Armstrong played football in college. I love football, and have been a fan for a decade. I want to dive into what college football and the NFL was like when he hypothetically played, with some assumptions made along the way, in regards to how Armstrong might have changed the fate of Texas football. Senator from Colorado Stephen Armstrong is 50 years old at the time of his death in Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, which takes place in May 2018, meaning he was born sometime between 1967 and 1968. He would have started college in fall of 1986. Although likely redshirted, for this hypothetical, I will say he started for the University of Texas for 4 years between 1986 to 1990. With him potentially going pro entering the 1990 NFL Draft before joining the United States Navy. What position did Armstrong play? As from what I have found, it has never been officially stated. Possible positions include O-line, quarterback, tight end, and defensive end. Armstrong is a mammoth of a man, even before the nanomachines. Standing at 6'7", he towers over most players on the field. There have only been a handful of quarterbacks near his height, and most have not performed well at the pro level. He also does not strike me as the type of man to play QB. Watching Armstrong during his few scenes fighting Raiden and during his speeches, he is certainly an extrovert, which rules out O-line for me, as O-linemen, barring exceptions, looking at you, Landon Dickerson, lean introverted. This leaves tight end and defensive end. He has the height for both, but Armstrong is constantly slamming into and grappling Raiden, so I believe Armstrong played defensive end in college, as it fits his extroverted nature, size, and fighting style. However, he would have made a great kicker.
Don't fuck with this, Senator!
Armstrong joined the University of Texas Longhorns for his freshman year in 1986. The Longhorns were a team in the Southwestern Conference along with 7 other teams. They did not perform well over the years between 1986 to 1990. In Armstrong's first year, Texas would go 5-6 and miss out on a bowl game. Following their loss to Texas A&M, Fred Akers was fired after his 10th season as head coach. For fun, I will adjust their record. Armstrong is a stud and leader on the defense, and turns any 6-point loss or below into a win. With Armstrong on the team, they go 7-4 and make a bowl, but still lose to Texas A&M in their last game. In 1987, things look up for the Longhorns. Under new head coach David McWilliams, Texas would go 6-5 in the regular season and beat Pitt in their bowl game, ending with a record of 7-5, their best record over this time. They would finish 3rd in the Southwestern Conference. With Armstrong on the team, they go to 8-4, beating BYU early in the year. In 1988, Texas fell back to earth, going 4-7 and missing another bowl game. However, 4 of these games were incredibly close, and with Armstrong, now a veteran at defensive end, rallies his defense, and they beat Arkansas, Texas Tech, Baylor, and Texas A&M, flipping their record from 4-7 to 8-3, making them bowl eligible. Armstrong is hailed as one of the best players at the position and is getting scouted by NFL teams, but chooses to stay 1 more year in college, hoping to get Texas to relevance. The 1989 season for the Longhorns would be a disappointment. In McWilliams' 3rd season, Texas would go 5-6 and miss another bowl game. Armstrong only helps a little in his last season, overcoming Penn State in their 2nd game, improving the record to 6-5, but makes them bowl eligible once again. Armstrong played in his last postseason game in college and moved on to the 1990 NFL Draft. The 1990 NFL Draft was held at the Marriott Marquis in New York City. The talk of the draft was QB Jeff George out of Illinois, who would be drafted number 1 overall by the Colts, who traded up from Atlanta. Despite being in the league for 14 seasons, he was a journeyman and career backup, signing with 8 teams before retiring after being cut by the Raiders. The next QB off the board was Heisman Trophy winner Andre Ware at the 7th pick by the Detroit Lions. He would also not have a spectacular career, flaming out faster than George. The two most notable from the draft were Hall of Famers running back Emmitt Smith and tight end Shannon Sharpe. At the 17th pick, Smith needs no introduction. He has been showered with accolades and achievements, including 3 Super Bowl rings and a Super Bowl MVP during his time with the Cowboys. Tight end Shannon Sharpe was one of the greatest steals in NFL history, falling all the way to pick 192 in the 7th round and being picked up by the Broncos. He would also get 3 rings and 8 Pro Bowl appearances. Armstrong is a defensive end, and the highest defensive end to be drafted was Ray Agnew by the Patriots at pick 10 in the 1st round. He would get a ring with the Rams in 2000 and retire after that. However, he never made a Pro Bowl or made waves in the defensive game. I will not be talking about the defensive end picked at 11. The only defensive end who made a Pro Bowl from the 1990 draft was 5th round pick Rob Burnett, who was drafted by the Browns. He had a long 14-season career and won a Super Bowl with the Ravens. If Armstrong had entered the draft, he would have been considered a game changer, either taking the 10th or 11th pick, and may have been compared to J.J. Watt or Nick Bosa, just bigger. However, Armstrong would ultimately choose to forgo the draft and instead join the United States Navy, much to the dismay of teams in need for a defensive player. One thing I just thought about was about how bad a fit the Navy is for Armstrong. The man was already a 6'7" wall of meat and then joined the branch that required you to live and work in tight places the entire time. But eventually he would become a Colorado senator and then the man we see in Revengeance. But, as you know, he played college ball.